Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Gaming in the Keats. I'm your host Chris, and I'm bringing you a battle report today. It is the final round of the Titans Winter Clash one-day event. I am up against Empire of Sonnstahl. I do need to make an immediate note here. So in this tournament, with my schedule, I had to be in Washington D.C. The day of the event, so that meant I could only get in 2 games that day. So I, contacted James, the tournament organizer, and I just asked him, "Hey, is it possible? Can I still be in the event, but get in 3 games? Like, how can we do this so that it's fair?" And so basically, I played this game Friday evening, and this is with our clubmate Mike. And so we basically put it into New Recruit as me playing the ringer. However, James didn't want me to play the ringer list because he thought that might not be fair to my fellow opponents. So we decided to instead match me up with a much more difficult matchup if this was like, say, the round 3 of a tournament. So I am up against my opponent, Mike, and his Empire. So yeah, let's get into the lists. Alright, you can of course pause and take a look at the list. I've already talked about it in great detail. But I can tell you right now, unfortunately, in these last 2 games, my Dread Prince has not been having a great, a great tournament. She usually does really, really well. But for some reason, these last 2 games, she's been not performing, which, in all fairness, that's really just me rolling poorly for her. So let's see if she can do something cool in this final game here. So for my opponent's list, he's brought basically it's like a combination of an Empire gunline and it has some pretty nice combat units as well, which I think is really cool with Empire. You can kind of get the best of both worlds here. So he's got a Knight Commander with the Witchfire Guard and the Light of the Sonnstahl. We've got a Prelate also on a horse with Kingslayer, which is really nice. So those 2 characters will go into that big Knight bus. We've got another Prelate with Blacksteel that goes into the Imperial Guard. So again, he has 2 main combat threats here. And we also have that BSB in there as well. And then we got 2 Artificers to help with the shooting, and we got a nice little cheeky spell scroll, Flaming Swords. And we have the Trusted Advisor upgrade on the other Artificer, so my opponent can kind of decide how he wants to play the secondary a bit better. We've got 10 Knightly Orders with the Stalker Standard. I feel like that's pretty standard what you see with this unit, and they're pretty cheap for 375. That's really nice. When you put the Prelate in there, so I mean, you're investing. There is a fair amount of points that go into that unit, but that unit certainly is great at hitting above its weight class. We got 25 State Militia just with spears, 15 crossbows, 15 handguns with the Marksman's Pennant. So they ignore the, I think they get accurate, but correct me if I'm wrong, of course. The 28 Imperial Guard with great weapons this time, so they hit really well. Also with the Stalker Standard, I feel like the Stalker Standard is just kind of going to be necessary now for a lot of the map setups, for holding those terrain features in the middle with the Arcane Ruins and how important they are for keeping infantry's ranks, especially since you count the ranks at the beginning of the combat. We got an Arcane Engine to help buff the Imperial Guard, and as well as put out the Ice and Fire Bound. We got 5 riders with Brace of Pistols, and then we have 5 riders with Repeater Guns, 8 Imperial Rangers. This unit is awesome because this allows a single unit to Vanguard if need be. Then we got the 2 Imperial Rocketeers and a Mortar. So it's just there's a lot of firepower from this list. as well as some really nice combat threats. So yeah, this is going to be an interesting match for sure. All right, so we're playing on mountainous crags this time. The deployment is bottleneck, so it's like either you have the 9 inches all the way across, or you have the 15 inches up, but then pinched 6 inches in. I got demonstrate superiority, so I need to kill one of his 2 most expensive scoring units. And then his secondary was unleash the big guns, so he needs to end the game with at least one unit with a shooting weapon in a terrain feature. I don't think he can do that with the wall. So, yeah. And then the primary was spoils. So one of our scoring, we played it as in this version, it was like one of our scoring units. We had, whose scoring unit could kill another opponent's scoring unit. Whoever did the most kills from that was the winning. I'll have to look back at it now because I don't quite remember at this rate, and I've just kind of moved on from this hotfix version, and I'm kind of just preparing for the next hotfix essentially. But yeah, that was what we got. Alright, so on the macro side of things, the primary means that both of us will at some point have to engage our scoring bricks in order to kill one of our scoring units. So we will be seeing combat most likely. My opponent can't just sit back and shoot me off the board, although I'm sure he will be very content to do so. There is actually there's quite a bit of terrain, but then when we set it up, it felt like there was not enough of terrain to really affect the shooting at all. I don't know, because the artillery ignore cover anyway, so it was just this is just very frustrating. So the only thing that can really affect the modifiers on the artillery is anything that gives out hard target. So that was a bummer, at least on my end. So there's I basically, it really had to really think about how I deployed. Going first in this matchup is, I think, very critical. If I'm able to go first, I can push the Mist Leviathan right in his face, and that's the one thing that will affect all of his shooting units within, or at least within 8 inches of it, and give that -1 to hit penalty, which is the one tool that I kind of have in order to affect his turn 1, and that allows me to really push and be aggressive if I get to go first. However, if I get to go second, I'm going to struggle to find any sort of, I think, cover or protection, and I just kind of have to make the decision, all right, what units am I going to lose round 1? That being said, my opponent's range damage is just so devastating. So if I do get the opportunity to go first, then I'm just going to push as best as I can. So the Mist Leviathan no longer has hard target also. It gives out a nice little soft cover aura to my infantry, height 1, but that's it. The Mist Leviathan used to be hard target, but if I remember correctly, I know the Krakens are hard target 1, but the Mist Leviathan, I think, also used to be hard target 1. I can't remember, whatever. But yeah, so I know my opponent is kind of probably going to try and shoot that thing off turn 1. I know the Imperial Guard are going to be tough to shift, and I really have, if I can get there, I'm really going to have to combo charge the crap out of that unit in order to ensure that I get it. Otherwise, I really just need to focus on the other 2 scoring units, the block of spears and then the knights. So really my goal is to really just focus on the knights for my secondary, because I know I have the range damage with the chariots, and I have the molten copper, and the Gorgons are a really good matchup against those knights, as well as the Obsidian Guard with at least 1 or 2 magic buff up. Yeah, and in terms of my opponent's magic, he only actually has like battle prayers for his combat units aside from like the spell scroll and like the bound ice and fire. So I'm actually not too concerned with my opponent's magic. I think, my magic kind of lines up pretty comparable against my opponents, and like I have the alchemy lore, so like all of my spells are great against him. Um, whether it be in combat or ranged. So I'm at least that's a bonus, but still, ultimately, I think this matchup is a red matchup for me. Um, Going first, I think, can really push it back in my favor. But yeah, this is going to be a tough game for sure. Yep, and there's one more look at my army for the tournament. I'm very happy with it, but it's always a work in progress. Everything I want to go back and actually redo a lot of things. I still, the Mist Leviathan, I still figuring out what model I actually need to use for the List Leviathan. We got one coming on the way. We got another hunting chariot coming. I have black cloaks coming. And then I want to redo there's some details I want to pick out from the spears and the obsidian guard, because these were painted years ago. So there's a lot of work that, is always to be done. Even though I like my Corsair banner, I still want to redo it. I think I can do it better now with my skills. And yeah, but overall, I'm happy. I'm very happy with how my army has turned out. All right, so my opponent won the roll to, he won the roll for deployment, so he made me choose sides and my deployment type. So I chose the bottleneck, 15 inches up. Perhaps this was a mistake, but I don't know. Realistically, if I give my opponent the 15 inches, yeah, like it just puts everything else like in range of me anyway. I didn't really have an effective way to get out of range of the mortars and the artillery, I felt. So my opponent drops for first. So let's first go from left to right, and then we can talk about this in more detail here. So here are the repeater guns that have already vanguarded. Here are the vanguarding Imperial Rangers who made this unit here vanguard. So I originally deployed in a way where they were outside of range even if they marched, but because my opponent was able to vanguard this unit, that actually put them in range of shooting, which was I should have. It was really hard to account for that because they could go vanguard 6 plus 24, so it's effectively 30, and it's just like, yeah, it was just hard. It was hard to really deploy unless I'm like really back against the line. So I just kind of said, you know what, I'm just going to make you shoot the Mist Leviathan at your turn 1 and put the Mist Leviathan right in front of my general. So, yeah, there you go. We got another, this is one of the rocket batteries. Here's the Arcane Engine. We got the Imperial Guard with the BSB and the Prelate. We got a mortar. Then we got the crossbows right here. We have the another rocket battery. We got the other brace of pistol unit right here that's already vanguarded. And then we have the knights on the far side. From my left to right, we have my acolytes who are touching the wall to give themselves a little bit of cover. We have the auxiliaries right behind here. Yeah. Then we got a Mist Leviathan. We have my general on the chariot. Also trying to give like an 18-inch aura, hit these auxiliaries as well as hit everything within here. We have the Corsairs in front of my Obsidian Guard. Everything's in the forest, as you can see, and the Mist Leviathan's aura hits my spears, my Corsairs, and my Obsidian Guard, so did that, at least. So that's effectively a -2 now. But then we have Gorgons, a chariot here behind, because I didn't want the chariot to get picked off. And then we have one vanguarding chariot out on this side here, to stop any shenanigans from his like brace of pistols coming out on this side. So already in deployment, like, because I didn't get to go first, I think I could have done this whole thing actually, like when I look back at this, very differently to give myself a better chance of winning this game. I think I got kind of sucked into the notion that, like, well, I need to either get the Imperial Guard or the Knights for my secondary, and I want to utilize as much cover as I have in my deployment zone um, as possible. And I think I could have done this actually on the reverse side and push this left side here. So, for example, if I have like the spears on this side, we have the Mist Leviathan and the Chariot, and then I actually just need to push more on this side, right? Like just keep going this way, and use the hill. And because all you need to do is touch this, touch the wall, I could probably have benefited from the cover with my infantry units anyway, and use the hill to block some line of sights. Now my opponent did have angles to come and the ability to shoot this way with these mortars because now they're height 2. So my opponent still did a good job of like covering everything they needed to cover, but maybe the hill gives me an opportunity to still provide myself cover while pushing that side. So, and I do think it would have been interesting to still keep the Gorgons and the Chariots on this side and putting them in cover as well. I mean, it doesn't really matter because the artillery ignores cover anyway, right? So, yeah, just, I don't know. But it still gives his knights something to think about. So, that being said, that could have been an option, but this is what I chose to do in the game. And yeah, I would have loved to have played this match again, just with a different deployment type. So in my opponent's turn 1, he really just kind of shuffles forward. Because they vanguarded, they don't actually need the move, these repeater guns, to get shots off on the acolytes. So, damn it. So yeah, he's basically going to focus all of his shooting right now on the Mist Leviathan, and then he just brings his chaffing unit of brace of pistols right over here. In my opponent's magic phase, he drew the 1 phase, so basically I stopped the missile from the Chariot onto the Mist Leviathan, but he did use his spell scroll to give himself +1 to wound here. And so, as you can imagine, with a combined shooting of the guns, but it did take everything. I will say this, it took basically everything with the rockets and the mortar and the handguns right here, and even the rangers, to put the final 9 wounds onto the Mist Leviathan. So he took out the Mist Leviathan turn 1, and then like some crossbows took, I think, 1 Corsair because they were just in range. I could have put these guys back, I think, to prevent that from happening, but I was hoping that the Mist Leviathan was going to provide that cover so I could actually push forward kind of immediately. But I kind of had to just anticipate at this rate, because I didn't hide the Mist Leviathan. Yeah, that it was just going to die. And then some brace of pistols also puts a wound on a Gorgon, and then my opponent, with all the repeaters, actually only kills 1 acolyte, so I got a little lucky there. Alright, so in my turn 1, I move as you see here. Auxiliaries come up they put themselves on the hill to shoot the repeater guns. I couldn't get out of my opponent's line of sight with the acolytes from where they were from the repeater guns, so it meant that if there was like a few left alive, then he could have just not moved and shot them anyway, and that's still just like a lot of shots that, that hurts. So I just decided to pull the acolytes back for now and save them for another opportunity. Here, I don't know what I'm fucking doing with my Chariot Prince. I'm sitting there thinking like, alright, well, I'm going to keep touching the woods to get some cover from like all the handguns and the bows, but like it doesn't matter with the artillery. So, damn it. Like, but basically, I would, like, what else was I was going to do aside from just going forward with how I had her initially? Like, and be in this kind of zone right here, which would give the Imperial Guard a nice little charge there. And she'd probably just end up breaking from combat res. So I just didn't feel like I deployed her very well and had a good option for her to keep her safe. So that's just my fault here. The Obsidian Guard do move up, but I don't march them into the water. I wanted to keep them, so I didn't push as much as I probably could have with the Obsidian Guard. But yeah, the way that I set it up here, so I don't choose to charge the chaff. I just basically push right in his face. I'm going to pull the Corsairs into the water and just try and nuke the chaff. Chariots are going to target the knights to take away their swift stride. Yeah, and so my plan is here, so I'm trying to draw out charges from his Imperial Guard or his knights. And so the way that I have it positioned where if he charges here, I obviously flee through my own unit, or if he charges here first, I flee through my other units. So either way, I'm just trying to draw out some charges. But he still has to deal with the Corsairs, I think, in some way, because I also have a nice little charge opportunity into his crossbows my next turn. So that will be interesting to see how my opponent deals with that. But yeah, so in my magic phase, I think my opponent stops the missile from my Exarch into his knights, but then I do get off the hereditary spell onto his knights, which is nice because now my chariots are like AP4. So I kill off a couple knights here, take away their swift stride from the chariots, and then the Corsairs absolutely nuke the brace of pistols. So great job on the Corsairs. They did so far they've bagged one unit this game, and I'm really happy about them. So shooting, also I failed to mention in the previous slide that the auxiliaries did take out 3 of these repeater guns. They failed their panic and fled, which was great for me. Like, I'm just like, awesome, great. That's another shooting threat out of the way. So my opponent's turn, you can see he charges the knights into the Gorgons. Now this is a bit of a bait here, because I wanted him to hit the spears, and then I have some counter charges set up with my chariots, and because the hereditary is up, like, those impact hits now become AP3. So it brings that 1-up save to a 4-up, which is still good. And so yeah, I'm actually looking forward to this, and that might actually get me the primary, depending on what happens here. If he kills the Gorgons, overruns into the spears, I mean, he's going to take a lot of damage back because those Gorgons are now effectively AP3 as well with their halberds. So that will be interesting to see how this goes. Now, I will say this. In my opponent's shooting phase, when we get to it, my opponent just nukes both my chariot. That's one rocket. One rocket took out my chariot. He got all 3 hits in. He got 2 wounds in. I had a 4-up, 5-up, and I failed both my armor saves and my Aegis saves, and so the chariot just dies. And then, for insult to injury, all the handgunners just completely take out the... they just... Well, no, it was a combination of handgunners and the crossbows. They take out the Obsidian Guard. He kills a few models from the auxiliaries here. But luckily they stick around. But yeah, and then he also puts, I think, 2 wounds with the other rocket battery onto this hunting chariot here. So I'm just like, oh my god. Like, this is looking bad. So yeah. So in the combat, oh my god, this was nuts. So Gorgons just absolutely... I put everything into this unit, which I think, when I look back at this, might have been a mistake, and I'll show you why. And so I put all the attacks into the unit as I could. Like, I just nuke the knights. But because they have lances and they charge, they actually go Simo with the Gorgons. And so, in combination with the knight commander and the prelate, they also they don't kill the Gorgons outright, but they do enough damage where, like, my leadership test to stick. I had like one Gorgon on like 2 wounds left or something. And so I fail the leadership check, and then they just crumble. And then look at this. My opponent rolls Snake Eyes for the overrun to get into the spears, because the hunting chariots took away their swift stride. So that was pretty wild. So yeah, that leaves me with that puts the characters right in front of my spears. So okay, so I do get my secondary already here, but because I killed, this was such an interesting situation. Because I kill this unit outright with the Gorgons, I get my secondary, but it doesn't give me a chance to get the primary with this unit. I think I could have maybe have just taken one Gorgon and try and put it into one of the characters, just to ensure that there would have been like still some knights left, so that if something like this happens, I can at least get the primary now with the spears. So in hindsight, I think that was a mistake on my part, but c'est la vie. So, okay, in my turn 2, yeah, it's turn 2, and look how much I have left on the board. So this is interesting. I charge the Corsairs into his crossbows. He chooses to flee, and unfortunately, my opponent rolls exactly what they need to not get off the board, but to fit right in this cute little space between the war machines. So that was annoying. Yeah. So then I redirect into the knights. And at this rate, I'm trying to just like overkill those characters. Because we do have a Kingslayer guy in there. We do have and he has divine attacks, so I don't want him attacking the altar. And then I have my Kingslayer character in here, which is kind of interesting. So I'm going to try and kill that Sonnstahl guy, but I do want some impact hits in there as well. So I have one chariot goes in, and the second chariot is actually outside of combat, and I'm just moving up to shoot at one of the rocket batteries. No, I know it doesn't kill it. So I think maybe this chariot was also a mistake. Charging in, I think I really just should have tipped the nose into the terrain as well and tried to take out one artillery piece with 2 chariots. It's not 100% likely. I mean, so it's 6 shots hitting on 3s, wounding on 2s. I'd need to get 4 wounds through. But it would have given me a chance to take out one of these artillery teams. And then auxiliaries move to kind of counter here, just trying to shoot into the unit of rangers, trying to just counter his shooting as well. I'm moving the acolytes in this way to just like give them some cover. Really not 100% sure if this was the best move here. I feel like I probably just could have swung them around to this side and start threatening the flank of his spear unit. So yeah, I don't feel like I'm playing the acolytes in this game also very particularly well. In Magic, I do get my opponent stops the hereditary. I fail my -1 armor save, but I do get off a -1 resilience on the unit right here. And after combat, it looks as like so. Basically, the chariot and the altar killed the prelate before he got to swing, and then my Kingslayer character killed his Kingslayer character, which was really good. So because yeah, that was awesome because he didn't make any of his Aegis saves, which is nice. Oh, and I think maybe one of my spears, I might have snuck that last wound through there too. I can't quite remember, but yeah. I was able to kill his characters before he even got to swing, so that was really good. And I reformed to see, as you see here. So in my opponent's turn, as you can also see, shooting killed some rangers, but they passed their panic, frustratingly. But that's okay. So my opponent reforms the handguns, and then, comes to... I think my opponent failed to charge here. He needed a 6 to get in. I probably just should have fled, to be honest, because that would have gotten him the primary. But I chose to not flee and just see what happens. My opponent failed it, so I got, he needed a 6 on 1 dice, but still a 1 in 6 chance to swing the game 3 points is, I think, still worth taking and probably worth fleeing. But my opponent does rally the crossbows, but they can't shoot. However, all the shooting takes out the back rank. Shooting here takes out the back rank of the auxiliaries. They pass their panic, and then all of his other shooting with the artillery take out both of my chariots. So that sucked. So both my chariots are now dead. Yeah. So, yeah, as I move up, as you can see, on my turn 3. I try and pull the spears away from the water as much as possible, but if, say he charges the Corsairs and wants to redirect into the spears, well, he has the Stalker standard, so it doesn't really matter if he touches the water or not. So, but I have it in a way so that if he charges the Corsairs and they flee, they're fleeing out this way, which doesn't prevent me from charging his unit in return. So really, I just move up the Corsairs. I want to take out one of these. I'm going to focus on one of the rocket batteries. Hopefully I can take it out. And then the auxiliaries, again, are just trying to, I'm going for points. I don't know if this is the best use for them at this rate, but I'm just trying to clear out this unit here. It's just less shooting into my acolytes, and now I finally decide to move the acolytes into a slightly more aggressive position to try and, maybe threaten. Maybe I'm trying to, move around to get into his backfield and get the other rocket battery or get into the flank of these handguns. I don't really want to charge the spears, because they're spears, and it's just, even though they have a bunch of attacks, it's still, I don't think it's quite worth it, to send them in, just because he still has a static of 4 and a banner, and then he has spear attacks coming back at me, and it's just not, I don't know. So in Magic, I do get off a -1 resilience, I think, on this rocket battery, and then my shooting does take it out, so I'm happy about that. So good job, Corsairs. Corsairs have now killed 2 units this game. Alright, and I kill one of these guys, 2 of these guys. He passes his panic, yay. That's still half points there. So my opponent doesn't choose to charge the Corsairs. Instead, he's just going to focus on shooting them. Shooting kills from this side. Shooting kills off 2 more auxiliaries. And then shooting, actually, he's now starting to focus on the spears, trying to whittle them down, so he kills a couple spears. And I guess he just, whiffed. He does kill a few more Corsairs with the crossbows. Or no, you know what he did? He chose to not shoot them because he didn't want me to take away, to give myself a charge into the crossbows. So I think he just tried to target the spears with everything. So this way, the Corsairs still actually have a few models here, but he did move his Imperial Guard in a way where I couldn't wheel past the Imperial Guard in order to get into the crossbows. So, but luckily I'm actually outside of 3 inches here with the light troops. So my opponent couldn't effectively do one and not the other, which is helpful because now I can move the Corsairs out and around, which is what I will do next. So yeah, that's exactly what I do with the movement. Again, with the extra movement I get from the altar, it just makes these Corsairs just super mobile. I love it. So they're going to go around and put some shots into this unit. I mean, yeah, he still has a BSB here, but still only a leadership 7, so I'm trying to force some panics. So yeah, auxiliaries are just going to they back up and try and get some cover from behind the hill from this unit here. And I'm just going to try and kill this one last, this one remaining guy, so to speak. Then, oh gosh. Oh, and you can see I move the acolytes up and around. I'm going to try and threaten some flanks here. Get either that rocket battery, get into the handguns. So, yep. Let's go into my shooting. Okay, into shooting, I do take out the final frickin' ranger. And then also, yeah, I do think I took some shots from the crossbows earlier, but you can see my Corsair unit, actually, I do enough to the crossbows to cause a panic, and they fail. And so they run off the board, which is great. So now that's 3 units bagged for the Corsairs. So Corsairs have exponentially paid for themselves this game. So good job, this unit. Alright, so my opponent's turn 5. He moves the Imperial Guard to block the Corsairs from finally picking off any more pieces. He's also, I think he's just outside of 15 inches here from the altar, so I can't actually charge the flank. Because that would have been interesting, right? Say I would have comboed the Corsairs into the Imperial Guard. I mean, it would have given a maximized charge roll into the Day of Warfare. So, and flank into the Imperial Guard would have been really nice. But no, my opponent made sure to not do that. So my opponent is just deciding to, put all his points into all of his shooting into the auxiliaries, because I guess I just didn't move them back enough, or whatever. And then my opponent does put his spears as best as he can. He can block the flank into his handguns, but he cannot block the flank, or he cannot block, the charge into the repeater gun, so that's what I'm going to try and take, and then try and get an overrun into his other war machine. That's my plan there. So, my opponent's shooting phase, as expected, the handguns remove the auxiliaries, and I think a mortar, let's see what he does. I think a mortar might take out, he puts a shot. I guess it doesn't have a minimum range. I don't know. I think some shooting takes out 1 or 2 more of the Corsairs. So this is my turn now, turn 5. I'm trying to get an opportunity here to get the primary. I march the spears up to now threaten this scoring unit here. I do charge the rocket battery. I just pull the Corsairs back right outside of... so I can still stand and shoot against the unit, which is good. Shooting, I kill 3 Imperial Guard, yay. And yeah. And I fail the overrun into the second mortar, which was a bummer. I think I needed like a 9 on Swiss Stride, either a 10, and I didn't roll it. So it was a bit of a longer shot here, but, I'm just trying to get points where I can at this rate. So yeah, but the acolytes at least were able to do something this game, so yay for them. So my opponent's turn 6, he charges in. A stand and shoot does kill a couple more Imperial Guard. He turns this unit around to shoot off the remaining acolytes. I'm hoping they survive, so I can at least get maybe 1 in to charge this war machine. And yeah, shooting, surprise, he does kill this acolyte unit. But it did take both the mortar and the handguns to finish him off, because he moved, because of the unwieldy 2, I think, penalty here with these guys moving. And the acolytes were bossing their Aegis saves up until the last mortar shot took it out. So I was like, no! And then, combats. So I do kill 4 more Imperial Guard in return, which is pretty cool. So the Corsairs actually chipped away at this unit, I think, pretty decently. But as you can see, they are no longer here for this world, so bye-bye Corsairs, but I thought they did a great job this game. So, end of game. This is my turn 6. I charge the handguns. My opponent didn't want to risk me getting the primary, so instead he just elected to flee and give up this unit's half points. This also just, oh my god, I was so pissed. And then I fail my redirect. Yeah, you can see the 1 I rolled for my command check there. I fail the redirect into his mortar, so I didn't get their points either. So, that was just nice little salt in the wound. And that's the tournament ended, for me at least. Yeah, wow, great game. Really well played, Mike. That was a really tough match. I think I probably could have done some things differently in the match to mitigate more of his shooting. But, I mean, good God, he was picking off, like multiple units, around, and I was doing my best to make his shooting not effective from what I saw at the time, but I'm sure I could have done a better job at it. So anyway, it was actually we both got a lot of points from each other, so let's take a look at the result. So it ends up being an 11-9 victory for the Empire of Sonnstahl. So my opponent was unable to get his secondary, but I got mine. My opponent got for me, I know it says Vamps of Maryland, but that was because that was the ringer put in. So my opponent got for me 28.57. I only got 22.37, so it was actually fairly close. Neither of us got the primary. It was drawn. So it was a 12-8, which made it go to an 11-9 for me getting my secondary. So, yeah, wow. All things considered, this being a red matchup for me, I'm actually very happy with this result of it getting 9 points. So, yeah, that was, and that marks the end of, the tournament, which I can do a tournament wrap-up video as well. But unfortunately, with a 9, a 14, and a 3, that does not put me in a great spot in the tournament. It gave me a total of, 14 plus 3 is 17 plus 9 is 26 points. So, yeah, I did not get my average of 10 points per game, which was a bummer, but oh well. This matchup here, I think, was could have went better than I expected, so I'm happy. All right, so in the macro, I kind of talked about this already, but I think I really needed to change my deployment approach in order to effectively push my opponent. And so it goes back to me deploying on my left side, my opponent's right side, so I could push that weaker side, so I could get the primary, but still keep, still keep the Gorgons perhaps and the chariots zoning that right side, so he couldn't just advance freely with his knights. And if he's shooting at those units, he's not focusing on the chariot prince. So, yeah, but the way that I did it now, my opponent could pick off, it was easy for him to have his target priority. So if I had split my force and really pushed that left side, I think I could have made it more difficult for my opponent, and perhaps used that hill to my advantage a bit better there. So that was just my fault. And then, going sec up in the match, oh man, that was a bummer. It was massive, really, because had I gone first, or dropped to go first, I just have that Missile Leviathan right in the center and just gun it with the 16-inch move, with the altar, right in my opponent's gun line, and just being you have a whole bunch of units that are being affected by the Missile Leviathan's debuff. And my opponent has to deal with it because it has fly. So then I can, charge him, if he's still alive, charge him into something nice. So anyway, that was my take there. Like, even though, again, like I said, it's a red matchup, but I think deployment really could have affected the results a bit better for me there. So I was wondering about this. I don't think I needed to charge the Corsairs or the chariots into the knight characters. I think in hindsight, maybe it would have been better to have marched the Corsairs right in front of those crossbows and just shoot him and try and force a panic there. Right, and just say, if you don't kill the Corsairs from shooting, I'm going to charge you anyway, and I get this bonus with the Banner of Erlaine, with all those extra attacks coming into that crossbow unit. So, I think that probably would have been the better option. And then, I think it did, that having the one chariot in there, like, I really want to ensure that I got that prelate before it could swing at the altar, because of the Kingslayer and Divine Attacks issue. But I'm kind of wondering if it was truly necessary, because the altar finished off the prelate before you even got to swing. It's one of those things where, like, maybe that wasn't the correct choice, and I could have used that chariot to shoot at, in combination with the other chariot, to shoot at one of those artillery pieces. I think I could have absolutely been more aggressive with the acolytes. Just because it gives my opponent another threat to deal with all the range damage. So it's like, it's forcing the tougher choice for my opponent's priority targets. Failing the Prince's armor save. She just had such a bad tournament. Like, with 2 dice, a 4 up and then a 5 up, like, it was certainly unlikely. And so I just didn't roll well for her armor saves. It's not like it's not like she had a deleted save here. Like, she certainly had a chance. Like, so it was it was unlikely that she failed both 4-up saves and then both 5-up saves to do the max. It's multi-wounds too. So it and then the one rocket battery just killed her, right? So it was that was painful. So I'm sorry, Dread Prince, but you did not do well this tournament. But that doesn't mean it's a bad unit. I think, there's some misplays I'd had with her, and also just some really bad rolling. So, oh well. And then, the Corsairs were awesome. And in fact, I thought they were great. They were ultimately great this whole tournament. They had some good matchups this tournament. They were great for chaff and counter chaff, and like the repeating shots with the stand and shoot makes them so good. And then you combo that with the altar move, like the altar's +1 mobility and the light troops. So like they were awesome. I really loved that unit this whole tournament, but they did a great job this game, so good for them. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for watching. I just so greatly appreciate it. I greatly appreciate as well just like the interaction in the comments. Not only does it push the algorithm, of course, praise be, but it gives me a chance to interact with people from all over the world, which is cool because I'm looking at the demographics of who watches the videos, and it's pretty cool to see like people watching from Russia and from Poland and from different countries in Europe. So no, I really appreciate you guys just supporting where you can. Like and subscribe, of course. Speaking of support, if you brought your big guns out for this video, and we'll go into perhaps a tournament wrap up. Maybe have a guest on here as well, the tournament organizer James. Let's see if he'd be down to do that video, and we'll go from there. All right, everyone, happy wargaming, and ciao for now, y'all.